Today we're looking at the Tamashii Nations 2024 event exclusive Godzilla -1 Heat Ray version or Godzilla 2023 Heat Ray version. Let's see, 4 months after the initial release, if this figure still holds up the way I thought it might. Looking at the sculpt and paint apps on the Heat Ray -1, we're not going to spend the absolute most time on this because we've already looked at this figure twice already for sculpt. I will kind of repeat a few things that I've said in the past, and I'm a big fan of the sculpt. It isn't 100% accurate. The head definitely is not the -1 that we see on the screen, but to that I say neither is the X Plus, and the X Plus looks great as well. This also, once again, I personally enjoy it. It's not everyone's favorite, but hey, opinions are opinions, and no one's is above the others. If I like it, perfect. If you don't like it, also fine. It's a-okay. The main change with this figure, paint-wise at least, is the blue atomic charge up. It is in the mouth right there. On mine, this is definitely better than some of the ones I've seen reviews for. I'm not going to deny that. It is a little disappointing that this figure has had some issues assembly line-wise with paint quality. It really shouldn't for such a limited release, but mine is fine. I'm going to review the product that is in my hands, not what the other YouTubers have, no matter how big or small they might be. I do like the blue eyes. That's not 100% accurate either, but it adds something to it. But these dorsal plates to me are the bee's knees. I love the way that these look. It's just gorgeous blue. Okay, blue. They have like a silver spray on the dorsal plates or white, and it just makes them look almost Arctic. It looks awesome. These are nice. Now, these aren't raised up, kind of like when he's charging up, they all raise out, you know, they all poke out extra. But because it has the heat ray, you could say that this version is the one that's firing the heat effect, which means that they're pushed back into place. So although, yes, it would have been cool to see these raised out a little bit more to create some difference, I also understand that they didn't do that. And of course, with how the figure's engineered, they couldn't make it like the Super 7 Ultimates where they can raise in and out. They're not going to add that extra engineering, especially like on this thin piece. It would be too difficult. Also, these are already fragile enough. I'm fine with it not doing that. It's a sculpt thing and an accuracy thing I'm willing to let go of just for the aesthetic. One thing that is kind of aesthetically breaking is just the snow paint app on the back. I wish it was a little bit more blue, just to kind of even out. I realize that there's silver down here in the middle, but it really, like, this is like Snow White, not the movie, but, you know, snow, white color, where in here it's got a more of a silver shine color. So that is, it does break it up a little bit. I'm not going to lie. It does break it up, but I'm overall very pleased with it. And most of the time I'm looking at the figure like this, I don't even see the spray on the body, you know, that just specifically this angle, but that's kind of how I look at it. So it is not the most perfect amount, but for what I paid for, I am very pleased with the aesthetics on this -1 figure. Taking a look at the accessories here, we've got an atomic breath, which everyone asks for every MonsterArts to include, and we finally have one. Now, it did take it being an event exclusive, but it is a brand new mold, and for the most part, this looks good. Is it the most accurate? No. It should be thicker, kind of like the Kamehameha effects, the various Kamehameha effects from the Dragon Ball line, but with the atomic breath feature. But I do like this kind of almost like hand grabby look thing here at the front. It's not the best aesthetically because it's white all the way down to the middle, and then it's just not a lot of transition, and then it's blue, and then the tips are kind of a lighter translucent blue. I do understand the effect that they're doing, and it is accurate to what it is, but there should be more transition between the white, the painted-ish blue, and then the translucent blue. So it does connect with a regular Tamashii stand, so it's good. It's not perfect, though. I won't deny this isn't perfect. The other thing that's included in this set is the Shinden plane. This thing is tiny, as you can see in my hands. It looks pretty good. It's not painted, but kind of same thing with the breath effect. I would rather there be less paint on the accessories and more going into the figure, which, as we'll look at here in a little bit, there definitely is a lot of paint attention on this figure, and I'm glad it's on the main figure rather than the accessories. But I do understand if people are a little turned off that it's blank. It does have a translucent fan that does kind of shift. I don't know if it fully articulates or rotates. I'm not going to press it because it's a very small piece, but it does look pretty cool. It does have the mini peg that most of the planes have had in the army sets and the Shin Godzilla breath effects that just plugs onto a Tamashii stand, so that's pretty cool. One downside though, there's only one arm, so you have to have another Tamashii Dragon Ball Godzilla product to have the breath effect and the Shinden in use at the same time. That's kind of a big boo-boo, but I understand Japan, these Tamashii stands are on sale basically everywhere, where this figure specifically was not supposed to be sold in the US. It is a Japan exclusive, thus it kind of makes sense, but it also doesn't at the same time. Since this is the same figure as the past two -1s that we've looked at on the channel, we're going to go over their articulation pretty quickly. They did update some things with the tightness and the looseness of some of these joints. The neck on mine is very, very tight again, which is a downside, and the top head pops off really easy. I'm not against that per se because of I would rather it pop off than break, but I know for some people joints popping off is very frustrating, and that is understandable. He can look up pretty well up. If the joints weren't tight, he could look down. My minus color can look really far down, but this figure can't because of how tight the joints are. I have to heat him up, pop him up, you know. But this is basically, even after 4 months, basically what he was like when I opened him up. The arms have a lot of range, and the biceps can turn mostly all the way around, not quite. The elbows are a little limited. They can lay kind of flat, kind of not, but they can only really bend 90 degrees in before they pop off. It's just a problem that they have. There's a ball peg in the wrists, so they do kind of wiggle around. You get enough. You can pose them to make them look a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more passive, stuff like that. The -1 Godzilla poses you need to get with the upper body, you can't have. This top point, I'm going to be honest, is really tight. It frightens me to touch it and move it around. But when it's not tight, it has good angle. It has good angles, good range. It's not bad. It's just mine's tight. And then same thing with the bottom one here. It can lean forward quite a bit though. When you have the Sculpt lip, you can see there's a little bit of a lip in there. When it's on the inside of the figure, which is how I prefer to have it, you can get more of that ab crunch. If you have it on the outside, which is how these were packaged, you kind of have to lift it in, lift this around. This is how I prefer it. You can't have it the other way though. The hips have a lot of articulation. Very, very nice. Got a lot of range, and they're not too tight, nor are they too loose, although I might debate that my left side one's maybe a little too loose, but it's good. It holds up its weight. The knees have a ton of articulation, so that's them bent in. That's almost 90, and then they can basically go, after adjusting it, almost flat out. Very nice. The ankle complements it a little bit. Once you have it all out, you can have them in a good swimming pose. It doesn't go very far up. It does have a good pivot though. I mean, once the whole joint's in, you get a ton of range in there, but you don't really need a lot of ankle range when the toes articulate. So you can get those poses even if the ankle's limited because the toes make up for it. Now it could have even more range if the ankles weren't so tight, but the toes, for me at least, they make up the range and make it definitely worth it. The tail on this one is definitely the most limited out of the three. I don't know if it's just the joint toughness. I do have one right back here that likes to pop off, so I'm not going to move it around too much, but you can basically get it all into your Godzilla -1 poses that you need. If you heat it up a little bit, I bet it would move just like the others. I just haven't done that because I'm lazy. The articulation could be better in some areas, but overall, I think they knocked it out of the park, and the things that they did kind of update really shine well on this Heat Ray version. Of course, I'm going to show it here next to the standard MonsterArts -1 first issue. This is not the reissue, and the -1 minus color version. This is as far as I'm going to go. I'll admit right here, I'm going to make a full comparison video where we talk about some of the tolerances, the paint QCs, everything else. Here they are just stacked next to each other, so you can kind of see the differences and the similarities between the three. Here's Heat Ray -1 compared to the Godzilla 2024, Godzilla X Kong, Legendary Godzilla, and of course, Shin Godzilla Awakening version. Here we have a couple SH Figuarts Ultraman figures in the Tamashii Nations 2024 exclusive Ultraman Blazer Furidian armor, and the SH Figuarts Tamashii Web exclusive King of Mons. Looks awesome next to these two, I'm not gonna lie. For our final two size comparisons, here it is next to the Robot Spirits Evangelion Eva Unit 2 with flight mode accessories, and the Figma Fate Grand Order Avenger class Servant Jeanne d'Arc Alter. So as for my final thoughts on the Heat Ray -1 Tamashii Nations 2024 event exclusive, it's really good. And once again, I'd like to point out I'm way more tolerable of this -1 mold, paint, sculpt than most people. I can accept that. For me, all three of these have been more than worth my money, even though this was the most expensive of the three to order. With that in mind, objectively, is there problems with this figure? Yes, this is a very limited event exclusive, and even though the paint on mine is mostly really, really good, there are other people's who are not, and although I won't speak for their copies because those aren't in my hands, this figure shouldn't have that many differencing in paint options. And, you know, we should get 2 Tamashii arms for both accessories. It's a little thing, but it's not a little thing. For how expensive and how hard this was, even for Japanese collectors to get, it could use a little bit more. I'm not going to give it a number scale, but I will say this. If you are not a hardcore -1 fan, a hardcore SH MonsterArts collector, or a completist of either of the two or both, I don't think this one is necessary if you have one of the other two or both of the other two. But I spent $130, $140 before shipping, and that's probably what I would recommend. If you have to have this, try to stay in that range if possible. If the aftermarket is above that, I think it's worth the scale. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'm glad to be back making reviews and showcases for y'all, and hopefully you guys are enjoying this. I'll see you guys for that SH MonsterArts Godzilla -1 figure comparison video later this week, hopefully. I'll see you guys in the next video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Talk to you all later.